And I think, coming back to the point about leverage, and I think this is one of the biggest shames of this election, that the Greens haven't figured out MMP in a much smarter way, because they should be the ones sitting where Winston is today. And if you think about National, I would actually still pick up the phone to James Shaw and go, hey, mate, is there a deal to be done here? Because, I think their fear is they couldn't take the membership with them. I think that you could sell a really strong story to the Green membership. And don't forget, they got their biggest ever win under a national government, which was the home insulation.
John Johansson, you seem to be
that's just not going to happen. It would break the Green Party in half. And
but aren't they already broken?
It's a lovely
it'd be
idea.
Another half,
there is still the veneer of unity.
You're both right in the sense that it's what, in a perfect world, James Shaw should do.
Yes.
But John, I think you're right, because I think that basically the Green Party membership consists of people who are from the extreme left wing, who have wacko views, who hate the National Party with a passion. They hate the National Party more than they care about the environment. And that's what drives the Green Party.
Isn't that the point, though? Isn't that where they've lost? So if it's all about, because this election, the environment has never been more relevant, and there were a lot of even, interested national voters.
No, but it's not going to happen.
You have to argue that James Shaw actually has the agency to do that, even if he was of a mind to.
This is a fascinating discussion, and it always comes back to this, but we are going to wrap this panel up at the moment. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. I'm joined again by our panel, Matthew Hooton, John Johansson, Trish Sherson and Morgan Godfrey. Te Ururoa Flavell there, that's it for him, politics, over and out. And we've had David Seymour, as some people will arguably say it's over and out for him too. John?
Well, as Paddy would say, all dirty deals end in tears. And this is another one. Epson and Seymour are now involved in a fatal embrace of irrelevancy, and in some sense they deserve each other. With Te Ururoa Flavell, I think he has been an absolutely brilliant parliamentarian, and he reminds me a lot of another Brian Donnelly, the late Brian Donnelly, who was a New Zealand First MP, but again, a very just fantastic parliamentarian. And Flavell has done very good by his people, and just his work ethic and constructive force in politics is always going to be missed.
Well, it's kind of interesting that you characterise it that way, a constructive force, and he's done lots for his people. What message have they been sent, though, Morgan?
I think it's a message that they lost touch with their roots. Te Ururoa's given, years of service to Māori people from his days as a school principal to now as an MP or former MP. But I don't think it's entirely over for the Māori Party, because all they need is one issue, that one foreshore and seabed issue. So if Winston got his referendum on the Māori seats, that could be the one issue that could propel Marama Fox or Lance O'Sullivan or maybe even Te Ururoa back into Parliament.
Do you think that's the last we've seen of them, Trish?
I think it's a big ask. If you know to get a party over the line, the funding alone in the organisation. Ask Gareth Morgan. And then, so turning to ACT, I think that is a really bleak scenario for David Seymour, because you're going back to Parliament not only as a one-man band, but potentially in opposition. So I think that last night's result would have been the very last thing that David wanted, because he now has to still try and carry the can for a party which I'm not sure is really a party anymore.
It's an independent MP, isn't it?
Look, there is absolutely got to be room on the right for a party to right of National. The current National government is to the left on most policy issues of where Helen Clark's government was. You look at paid parental leave. The current scheme, supported by National, is something that Laila Hare from the Alliance wouldn't have dreamed of when she first negotiated with Helen Clark. And yet that guy just does not seem to understand what right-wing people want to hear. And it's not softly messages about the environment. They want to hear about tax cuts. They want to hear tough on crime. They want to hear that we're going to have microeconomic reform.
That's kind of interesting, because at the moment National doesn't have the same array of buddies that it could work with as Labor. So where does that party come from, though? Do some people peel off from National, or where does this
The problem
spring
is
from?
there are people, the Gibbs family, for example, who donate hundreds of thousands of dollars to this rump of a party. And so what that does on the right is it says, oh, that's still a real thing. And I think it's time for people to understand the ACT Party is not a serious proposition. So David Seymour has to lead something new or give up. And it has to be 5% or broke. He has to go tough. And he has to make a real differentiation from National and stop worrying about the Epsom guarantee. Because what's the point in it?
Well, he's a slave.
There's no point in it.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about one of the other small parties, which was Gareth Morgan and TOP, that's getting around 2%. Did he waste his money or did he add anything to this election campaign? Any takers?
I feel he wasted his money.
Why?
Because he is a man of means, he had a series of options available to him to influence public policy. And he chose the bizarre form of a political party to do that. And with all the history of trying to reach 5%. And so it always seemed counterproductive to actually what his ends, were. So I think it's been just a shambles. And as the actual campaign's gone on, the contradictions have been amassed at such giddy speed that they basically became incoherent, in my view, from what Gareth's vision and purpose was.
So is he dead in the water? Because he's got these great ambitions of getting huge numbers and sticking around to the next election.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because New Zealand's political history is littered with business people, particularly male business people, who think they can do everything better than
Bob Jones did.
Yeah, but he had charisma.
Of course.
Bob Jones had charisma.
That's
in a way
exactly
that-
right.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that probably it would be in Gareth's interest to stick around. You know, this might have been just a kind of a pet project. Now it's come and gone and he'll move on to other stuff.
I think he picked the wrong election because what we saw was the voters returning to the security of the main parties. So the Greens went down. New Zealand First is in a weakened state, losing votes to both Labour and National because National ran a strong campaign in the provinces. And we saw TOP just wasting votes with that 2.2%.
Yeah. Well, and Gareth would have said, well, you know, James Shaw put that to him, those could have been your votes. And he said, well, you know, no votes are mine. They're up to the people to make the decision. Hey, but I know you've talked about the Greens a lot, but James Shaw there, he said not this time for National because he'd made this promise, but he said, you know, parties change. Is he leaving the door open a squeak or what?
Well, look, we saw a great interview just before with Te Arua Flavel. The National Party has changed and is a better party as a result of its association with the Maori Party, and so has the Labour Party changed as a result of the Maori Party being there. James Shaw says before the Greens would deal with National, National has to change, and he seems not to understand that if at some point in 2020, 2023 there was a National Green government, that would change the National Party permanently, and in the same way the Maori Party has. And there's no point in waiting for the National Party to endorse carbon taxes and emissions trading schemes and things like that. The Green Party has to force National to adopt those things.
Well, interesting thing there. He said if Bill calls him, he's duty bound to take the call.
It's got to go the other way.
To me, it's just a whatever.
Yeah.
We're just wasting words on this.
All right, well, let's talk about Labour. What do you think they'll be doing in the back room today, John?
Well, I think there'll be a bit of a contest there. There'll be some who think we must, we've been 3 terms in opposition, we must compete strongly for Winston's favour. I think the smarter thing to do to preserve the gains that they have made at this election, and everybody has to remember that starting from a 21-point gap in the last election cycle, this has been an amazing, successful campaign. Hasn't been quite enough, but they are now poised to be competitive and, claim government in 3 years' time. So playing a longer game, because if they attach themselves to Winston in a coalition, then Jacinda's patter about generational change, and that generational change
It's
is
hard to
taking
look,
place
yeah.
in New Zealand society, is undermined. And so there's a bit of thinking that needs to be made. I would just take a passive position, give National the opportunity of forming a government.
Do you actually think they should pass this up even if it came their way?
I would be playing a very passive position.
Jacinda Ardern is the Don Brash of the Labour Party. All she has achieved is to consolidate the left.
She's rather
In
more
net-
than that,
in
mate,
net
because
to-
she didn't have to resort to a race
she's
speech to
she
get
has
into the game.
transformed whatever. She's transformed the left. She has consolidated the left. But just like Don Brash, she hasn't really gained any votes across the line. Don Brash attracted about 2% of Labour voters, shifted to National. In net terms, Jacinda Ardern has not attracted a single national voter to the Labour
Now
Party.
that's just not right, mate. Let me talk about Canterbury
Nationals,
votes.
in
Do you wanna hear about them?
in net terms, Nationals vote is just the same as it was
Labour
3
has
years
made
ago.
inroads in different parts of the country, and they are in a better platform to realistically form a credible government than they are in
Well, I'll tell you the big
2017.
problem Labor has, because Labor has bought into the Jacinda mania nonsense, and the media is predominantly consists of people who live in Auckland Central, Wellington Central, and the Te Atatu Peninsula. And they have called her, without irony, the Queen of Hearts, the People's Princess, and all this nonsense. And all she has done...
You would have heard those phrases on this show.
Not on this show. But all she has done is got Labor to 35%, which is what David Shearer got.
Okay.
She's matched Mickey
She's
Savage,
agree.
mate.
Oh,
And-
that's the
Okay, let Trish in here.
She's not Mickey Savage or David Long.
because-
she's David
Matched the
Shearer.
performance.
Oh,
No, she hasn't.
She has
And
not.
also, what this campaign has highlighted is the enormous amount of work Labor needs to do if they do want to be a credible government. And for the third time, they've gone in with a tax policy that was a shambles, and that's something that they have to learn from this time
All
round.
right, last word to Morgan. How long is it going to take to get done and dusted, and who is going to be leading the government?
Oh, don't make me make
Yeah,
the
I am. Anyone, predictions, quick, before we go. How long are we going to be waiting, people?
October 12.
Yep, done and dusted. And who's going to be in charge?
Well, I think the logic is with the simple deal, National New Zealand.
All right, there you go. John's put his money on the table. Well, that's all from us for now. We might have a clearer idea of what's come out of the election by next weekend. We'll see you then.
This program was made with the assistance of the New Zealand On Air Platinum Fund.